Hi everyone, this is Ekaterina, and this week we'll be talking about the ethical framework for counseling professionals. Now, I understand that this topic probably doesn't sound very entertaining. However, as I learned about it more with other fellow students, I actually understood that this is very important, obviously not only for the people who are studying to become a counselor, but also for anyone who is interested in counseling or even doing counseling themselves. Because in fact, in UK, counseling is not regulated, and this is because there's such a variety of the different counseling techniques and therapy models, so it's really hard to put it in some sort of, I would say, box. And actually, I think it's a good thing in some ways because, as you can imagine, all the clients coming to the counselors, they all have different problems, different life experiences. Therefore, it won't be really possible to put them in those really well-defined boxes. And the counselor professionals really need to have some flexibility with regards to how they work with each individual. So obviously, there are some risks with regards to the fact that this practice is not regulated, but at the same time, it's also really hard to regulate. Nonetheless, in UK and across the world, there's multiple ethical bodies, so organizations that actually create some sort of guidelines for the counselling for their members. And one of such organizations is BACP, the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. So why do we need those ethical bodies? Well, first of all, they do provide some guidelines, some sort of structure with regards to how one should work with the clients. They also provide additional training to the counselors. They definitely provide some professional development. And also, which I think is quite important for most of the viewers, is that in case a client has any problems with their counselor, who is a member of, let's say, BACP, then they can actually address their issues with this ethical body, and they will then work with the counselor to understand what they've done, what they could have done differently. In some cases, counselors can actually lose their membership in those ethical bodies, which is not great. And obviously just make sure that the clients also receive a very good quality service. So it is certainly important, and even from my own experience, the counselor I have seen, she was part of the BACP, and later on when I asked for a referral for a different therapy, one of the things she told me initially is that make sure that whoever you see is a part of some sort of ethical bodies in UK. It doesn't have to be BACP, but that person needs to be not just with a degree, but with good experience and be a member of some sort of society, so that you as a client, if you have any problems, can address them with that body and seek help. So far I've been mostly focusing on the experience of the client and why is it beneficial for the client that the counselor is part of the ethical body, but also for the counselors it's quite good because, as I say, they get some support and guideline with regards to how they should work with their clients, but also that framework is not really rigid, so they can actually have some flexibility to accommodate individual needs of each client. So today specifically we'll be talking about the ethical framework for the counseling professionals, which is the code of conduct or code of practice of BACP. So it is a real document, and in fact I have it printed here. So it is not very big, it's 27 pages, so not small either. But I would definitely encourage everyone to read this document, especially if you're interested in counseling or doing counseling yourself or thinking to start counseling and your counselor is part of the BACP. Obviously, if they're a member of a different organization, please try to get a hold of their code of practice so that, again, you have better understanding of what you can expect from your counselor. Now, I should also say that personally, I have changed quite a few jobs and I work for a few big corporations, and whenever you start a new job they always give you a lot of documents to read, and one of those documents is usually code of practice for that company. And I never really liked those documents, unfortunately, because for me they were quite dry or they were filled with the big corporation language. However, I really struggle to see when exactly would you apply it in practice. How does it actually affect my day-to-day duties? So it was just another kind of a tick box to tick, another document to read, but I could never really fully relate to them. And I would say this was the very first code of practice that I read where I actually enjoyed it and wanted to read it again. And I think I will be coming back to it. And I certainly am considering to become a member of BACP in the near future. And the reason for that is that even though it's 27 pages, however, it's written really in a simple manner. There are well-defined sections, so you don't have to read the whole document. You can just focus on the parts you want. They're initially more kind of simplified and focused parts, and then if you want more information, you can go to the back of the document when they go more into detail. But most importantly, they have 2 pages, which is a BACP promise and commitment to their clients. And this is something a counselor who's a member of BACP can just print out and give to their clients during the very first sessions as a sort of token of, here, look, this is what I promise that I will at least deliver to you. This is the basic that you can expect from the counseling sessions. Because again, as a client who've never done counseling, you don't really know what you can expect. So it's a great 2-pager with just 6 well-defined points with regards to the counselor respecting their rights, obviously keeping their confidentiality, and a few other points that they will follow if you were to see a BCP counselor. So that part I really enjoyed. And then also the document goes more in the values that they encourage all the counselors to possess, as well as principles they have to follow, and finally some good practices. So they give examples of how you can actually adapt those values and principles in your day-to-day practice. So again, it was really simple to read document, and for once I did feel like it actually made sense. I can apply this document. And in particular, this section about the values that BCP encourages all the counselors to develop, I found it quite nice because it focuses on the fact that we need to respect the client's rights. We have to help improve the quality of their relationships. So we're not just talking about the relationship between the counselor and the client, but also the client's relationship with their family, their friends, or anyone else that they have any problems with. It's also about appreciating the difference of our experiences, the fact that the way the client experiences this world will be most probably different from how we experience this world, and we need to, as a counselors, to see it from their angle. And most importantly, it's all about elevating the symptoms of distress, and this can be done by simply listening. And I think the skill of listening is really underestimated. And as I'm doing more and more practical sessions in this course, I certainly am feeling like I'm becoming better at just, shutting up and listening to the other person, because just by being there for them, you can certainly already help them take some of that load of stress off their shoulders. So even if you are not planning to become a counselor, please read this document and try to apply some of the values described there in your day-to-day interaction, and you will see how people will appreciate it more. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that in our class, so what we did was that we discussed this document, the ethical framework for counseling professionals, and then we really had to think and share our thoughts about the values and the principles, and which of those values perhaps we felt we already possessed, which of those principles we found difficult to adapt. And I'll say again, just sharing my personal experience, I felt like a lot of the values and principles mentioned in these documents were very much aligned with my own ways of interacting with people and what I believe is right when you are talking to a client. So I think I've found it very reassuring, the fact that, well, if I were to ever become a counselor and a member of BCP, that the values they expect are aligned with my values, so therefore I'm on the right track. You know, this is something that I could possibly do in the future. Obviously, as anyone doing these studies, I've noticed all the students, we are all a bit worried as to, well, can we actually do this job? Are we really fit for this? And as I said, when I read this document, definitely it made me feel a bit more secure about, well, I think I could do this job. I think I have the values that are required to become a counsellor. So as a part of the studies, we had to really reflect on this document and also write one of our assignments, about 1,000 words, where we had to go through a code of practice. It didn't have to be a BACP one, you could choose another one. I've chose BACP just because I really liked it. And then we had to reflect on the values and the principles in this document, what we thought about them, and most importantly, how we could apply it in our counseling practical sessions and in the future interaction with clients. So just another thing for anyone who is actually doing the study or is planning to start next year, please be aware that I would say with each unit the number of assignments is definitely increasing. So in Unit 3, dedicated to the ethics, there are 8 assignments that we have to write, starting from 250 words to 1,000, and certainly it's taking more and more time, so just wanted to keep you updated on the assignments as well. But nonetheless, really enjoy this document. Again, I will put a link in my description of this video to this document, so it's free to download. Obviously, please find some time to read this document and let me know what you think about it, whether you thought it was as great as I did or whether you actually had a completely different opinion. I'm interested to hear them all. So once again, thank you very much for your attention. Next week we'll be covering the topic of labeling and also prejudice and how it can affect the counseling relationship. But for now, please remember to like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and most importantly, take good care of yourself. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.